Welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast. My name is Anthony Oliver, and today's discussion will focus on busting the myths and exposing the realities around our hydrogen future. Now, there is no dispute that when it comes to energy sources, hydrogen is one of the cleanest around. No carbon emissions are released when it's burned, and when it's used in a fuel cell to power vehicles, it's reckoned that the fuel cell is around 2 to 3 times more efficient than a conventional internal combustion engine. So it is clear that harnessing the power of a clean fuel, such as hydrogen, must be part of our net zero carbon future. But of course, the challenge and the reason so often quoted as to why hydrogen can never be a serious part of the UK's energy mix is how to create the vast quantities needed to replace the current global fossil fuel demand. Problems of cost, complexity continue to make the gas a difficult thing to produce commercially. So what's the truth about hydrogen in the future? Is it the solution to our energy transition needs, or simply a dead-end technical delight? Well, to find out, it's my pleasure to welcome Dr Angie Needle, Director of Strategy at Cadent Gas and Vice President of Hydrogen UK, who is without question well capable of really busting the myths around the UK's hydrogen future. Angie, welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast.
Hello there, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Well, so am I, to be honest, Angie. I'm very excited. I'm a bit of a hydrogen groupie. I do think it has got huge potential, so try and bust my myths if you can. So kick us off. We hear so much about the potential of the hydrogen as a solution to our energy transition needs. What is hydrogen and what is the real opportunity?
Yeah, great question. So it's a good place to start, isn't it? Because we're Cadent's a gas network today, and we deliver natural gas to 23 million homes and businesses up and down the country, keeping this country going. And gas, unfortunately, right now keeps the country going. It generates electricity when the wind's not blowing and keeps people, warm, and all the factories and whatnot going. So we have to replace that, of course. And hydrogen is a gas. It's that one on the top left of the periodic table that you did at school.
I remember that.
Yeah, you remember it, right? So, and the thing about hydrogen is that it is attracted to other things. So it doesn't occur much naturally, although it does occur naturally. You do get natural hydrogen. But it's in water, H2O, it's in methane. And so in order to get at that hydrogen, you've got to create a renewable process, if you like, to extract that hydrogen. But once you've got it, you can use it for all kinds of things. And the wonderful thing about hydrogen is its versatility. So like natural gas, it has a huge energy content, and it can be stored, and it can be converted to other things. It can be transported by pipeline as a gas, or it could be converted into liquids or solids if you needed to. So it does have a versatility to it, which is actually part of the downside as well, because there's so many different things you could use it for. You have to sort of pick the things that make the most difference. And the most important thing is that when you look at net zero, there's a general accepted view that you can't get there without hydrogen, because it just simply does things that helps that energy system to work. So we're working on a future with about 30% of our energy systems going to be hydrogen by 2050.
Well, it's interesting because last time I spoke to you, I think about a year or so ago, you told me that the net zero challenge is a game changer for hydrogen. I suppose, has it been over the last 12, 18 months? What's happened?
Huge things have happened, right? So without net zero...
And I missed them all, no.
I hope you haven't missed them. So without net zero, there was an excuse not to decarbonise the bit that was left over, right? And there was no excuses now. So you've got to find a solution for all the tricky stuff. And this is where hydrogen steps in. So what's happened over the last few years is we've had a hydrogen strategy that's been published by the government, which is brilliant. We've had an energy security strategy, which has doubled the amount of hydrogen that the country plans to produce. So it's gone from 5 gigawatts to 10 by 2030. That's a lot. That's a lot of hydrogen from nearly a standing start. The government's published business models that support carbon capture and storage, hydrogen production, and there are exciting things on the cards this year on blending hydrogen into the gas network so that we can start to move it around the country and we can start to use hydrogen at scale, and also demonstrating what hydrogen conversion could look like using the existing infrastructure. And there's projects around hydrogen villages and towns in progress right now, which is demonstrating how things happen. And so it's really key at the moment. So we've moved from the talking about it to starting to do something. And that's where it gets a bit exciting, doesn't it? And we've got the funding, to enable those things to happen.
Well, the current technologies require either huge investment in renewable energy generation to power the electrolysis process required for green hydrogen, and I'll get into a few colours now, or huge investment in embryonic carbon capture technology to clean up the CO2 byproduct produced from natural gas or biomethane, which is, I think, grey. I mean, there's many different types of hydrogen. There's blue, there's turquoise. I mean, give us a rapid, what are they all? Give us a rapid technical rundown of how we're going to get this, how you see us getting this hydrogen.
Yeah, so there is unfortunately bad hydrogen, right? That's your grey hydrogen. So that's hydrogen that's made without the CO2 if it's made in the byproduct being captured. Right? It's really important that we capture any CO2 from hydrogen production. But from natural gas, blue hydrogen is, with carbon capture and storage, significantly lower carbon emissions than natural gas on its own, or grey hydrogen. And that uses a sort of a chemical process called autothermal reformation to extract the hydrogen from the natural gas. And then you've got green hydrogen, which is basically where you power the process of electrolysis with renewable electricity. Now, I would also class nuclear-driven electrolysis as green. It's got zero carbon emissions associated with that. So any hydrogen that can be made with waste electricity, heat, or renewable energy and heat is low carbon. And then you've got other shades of hydrogen, which I wish we wouldn't use colours, by the way, is things like turquoise, which is basically is a process that enables the production of solid carbon rather than gas, which means you can do different things to it. You put it on the land, use it for all kinds of things that you use carbon for today. So the innovation is happening in this sector. And as with wind and all the other technologies, you've got to start somewhere. And there's lots of different ways of getting to net zero. Now, the really good thing here is that the government have put in place a standard that says, if you want support for making hydrogen, it has to meet a low carbon standard. So, and you have to prove it. And you have to prove it regularly, and the standard will get better over time. So you won't be able to...
So that's green?
No, all colours of hydrogen.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Blue, green, pink, yellow, whatever you're making, if you can prove that it is meets the low carbon standard, you're in. And that's really important because we shouldn't really be worried about the colour of hydrogen. We'd be worried about the carbon content of it.
Right. That's interesting because I'd always assumed that for some reason that green was good, grey is bad, and everything in between is sort of getting closer to being bad.
Well, that's true. That is true. So grey is bad. There's no carbon capture for that. But anything else that's not that is on the sort of pecking order.
Okay.
And the reason why we're focusing on both green and blue right now, and green's the destination because it's the lowest carbon intensity hydrogen that you can get, but blue is a sort of bridging because the blue projects that exist today are on gigawatt scale, and the electrolytic green projects are on a megawatt scale.
Right. Yeah.
So whilst we're waiting for green to get going, there's thousands of tons of CO2 that can be saved in the meantime.
But that's relying on at-scale CCS carbon capture and storage technology. I mean, it's not mainstream yet, though, is it?
Yeah, so there are CCS plants working today, in various countries around the world. It's not mainstream in the UK, and that's because the business models haven't been in place to make it attractive, investment for the sector. But we do have the geology to do carbon capture and storage. And so, we at Cadent, we're colour agnostic. Our job is to make sure that the low carbon energy gets where it needs to go. Our preference is that it's as lowest carbon as it can be. But government is clearly putting effort into getting carbon capture going because the amount of CO2 that you can save by doing that, even if it's an interim, is significant.
Exactly, because, as you say, you go from gigawatts, from megawatts to gigawatts by getting carbon capture and storage, because you can bring an awful lot more generation into play.
Yeah, and ultimately you have to be able to demonstrate that it is significantly less CO2 being emitted than either natural gas or grey hydrogen.
Okay.
So it's got to prove itself. It's got to be economic, of course, but it's a bit purist just to think that you should only have one kind of hydrogen production. I think there's room for lots as we get going.
Another myth to bust: is it dangerous?
So all gases, combustible gases have safety issues that we have to manage, of course. And as a gas network, that is our job. Like, we manage the delivery of a combustible gas day in, day out, and we do it very well. So today we deliver natural gas to 23 million homes as a gas sector. Safety incidents are very few and far between. And hydrogen has similar properties to natural gas, although not identical. And some things are good. So on the good side, it's very light, it dissipates really quickly, it's harder to accumulate, therefore, and it's less energy dense. However, it also ignites over a broader ignition range. Other benefits are that when you burn it, it produces no carbon monoxide. So there's pluses and minuses of hydrogen compared with natural gas. And it's our job to make sure that when we're planning a conversion, not only we keep ourselves safe, but we understand the nature of the gas such that we can put in place any new or different safety practices that are needed to manage it to the same level of safety as we do today. And our expectation is, on all the work that we've done so far, and we've done quite a lot on this because it's important, is that we expect it to be able to be managed as safe as the existing gas network. And that's key, right? It's important that we keep people safe in whatever applications they're using. But ultimately, it's a gas, and its purpose is to combust, because that's what we're using it for. So,
Yeah. But of course, in London, you see hydrogen buses.
Yep.
and it's possible now to buy a hydrogen-powered car. Yep. I'm not sure that the hydrogen highway is there to back up that in terms of fueling it. But what you're saying is that there is no reason that you would feel you should feel any less safe with a tank of hydrogen than you would a tank of petrol.
Yeah, and it's just about, with any new technology, you put in place the right safety measures. And we'll do that for batteries, we do it for electricity, we do it for natural gas, and we'll do it for hydrogen.
Okay. So the big wins, I've seen an excellent video that the Energy Networks Association published. It tells the story. So would you say that the future of hydrogen is about burning hydrogen in place of gas? Or is it about fuel cells that drive vehicles? Or is it simply, is the big win about being a storage device?
So the current hydrogen strategy that exists talks about the role of hydrogen across three main uses. Industry, because there's some industry that cannot do what they need to do without a flame. So companies like Tate and Lyle are like, we're not going to have golden syrup without hydrogen, so please get it to our door. And that's really important, because we need golden syrup for our porridge, don't we? So, and so there's like industry is needed, power generation, where you're delivering that flexible response to meet peaks and troughs in electricity use when it stops being windy and your gas turbines kick in today. So that's another critical use for it. You've then got other uses where it may be more niche and selective, but for good reason. So, for example, in transport, there's a general view that majority of transport is going to be electrified. However, we've got some hydrogen vehicles at Cadent, and there are some instances where you're going to need something a bit more flexible than battery vehicles can provide, because you're either on long trip deliveries, or you've got, ambulances or police, or, things that can't stop and charge for 10, 15, 20 minutes, so it's just about it being in the right places for the right uses. Okay. And then lastly, about heating people's homes, and it gets a bit controversial when you talk about home heating, but it's about providing choice for customers. And also, if you've got hydrogen, you've got it at the right level of affordability, and you've got a boiler that pretty much looks exactly the same as the one that you've got today, why would you not want that as an option, as a future heating solution? And so those are the sort of main uses, if you like, they're expected for hydrogen. And the government's trajectory is starting with industry and power and making decisions about the others later. Okay.
I was talking about, you mentioned what you're doing at Cadent there. You're transitioning from a company that delivers natural gas to one that delivers green gases, hydrogen and biomethane. One of those ways you're doing that is running the HyNet project. I mean, just give us a potted, history. What is that? How's it going? And, where does it sit in terms of our future pathway for hydrogen as a fuel?
So HyNet's just the name for the big industrial decarbonisation project in the Northwest. And so it started off as a sort of consortium of us looking at, if you're going to make hydrogen and there's some industrial users up in this region, how do we create this ecosystem that works for all the users up and down that region? So you've got to make the hydrogen, you've got to distribute it, you've got to store it, and you've got to fuel switch. I always say that Cadent's just a bit of string to the gas network that ties things together.
Yeah, because you've got people that are providing the power to make it, people who are providing the chemicals to make it, and people that are actually needing to use it. So there's that whole kind of network, and you join it all up.
Exactly. And if you're going to create an economy, the hydrogen economy, having a case study to work through is really quite helpful. And we're at a place now where carbon capture has been approved, the first big hydrogen production facility is being supported, and we're looking at the routing for the pipeline that's going to take hydrogen to really critical industries up and down that region. We've got glass manufacture, we've got steel, we've got power gen. It's a really good microcosm. But we've not yet put a spade in the ground. Still work in progress, still needs that mechanisms to support and fund it that are going through the energy bill at the moment.
But you have run a number of trial projects. I mean, High Deploy, for example, with Keele University.
Yep.
I mean, that gave some evidence, did it, of practical success for hydrogen as a fuel? Yeah,
so we've done quite a few practical projects, actually, because, sometimes you need a bit of seeing is believing, don't you, to be able to show what can be done. So the High Deploy project at Keele, which was then also replicated in a village called Winlayton with our friends at Northern Gas Networks, that was just looking at blending hydrogen into the gas network. Does it do anything?
Yeah.
Does it affect our appliances? The answer is no. Nobody noticed any difference.
And you're allowed up to 35%, is it? 35% that you're allowed to blend?
20% is what we blended up to. And that is just because existing appliances are tested to a 20% hydrogen mix, even though they might not see any hydrogen in their gas at the moment. And that means you can go up to 20% and there's nothing that needs to be different. And that's really important because 20% by volume, that is, it's only 6% carbon savings, but it helps production to grow because they've got somewhere to put hydrogen should they need to. Yeah. And that's key.
And you've also got the Hydrogen Village project. It's in Whitby. What's happening there?
So we've got, in addition to the blending project, there's some 100% hydrogen projects. So as well as demonstrating actual appliances, so you can come up to Whitby, which is in Ellesmere Port, by the way. I don't want people to think it's northeast Whitby. Yeah. Ellesmere Port, and you can see the boilers and the cookers. They're all running on 100% hydrogen. You can see the flame of a hydrogen cooker is orange and not blue. You can, fry a pancake and make some Yorkshire puddings, whatever, floats your boat.
But that's with real people and real people's houses and real people's lives that you're transferring over to hydrogen there.
It will be. And so the government's had got a competition going between gas networks for which village ultimately gets the project. And there's Redcar in the northeast and there's Whitby in the northwest. Government going to make their choice at some point this year. Right. And either of these projects, the purpose of them is to demonstrate what a conversion to hydrogen looks like, what it takes.
Okay. Let's talk a bit about you, Angie. I mean, you're driving Cadent's hydrogen strategy. Your background is in utilities. I mean, how did you get so involved in hydrogen? Because I think you started in water.
So I mean, I'm an environmental scientist. Like I'm a tree hugger in disguise, and it's not a very good disguise. Let's be honest with you. So I really care that we have ways and means of getting to net zero. And my role in the water sector, I was the energy manager of the water company. We spent like 50, 60 million pounds on electricity. I spent
That's angling
water, and focusing on anaerobic digestion and what we can do to generate biomethane and how we can make our sites power stations and all the really good stuff that utilities do, That is why I'm here. I then joined British Gas and I'm now at Cadent. And when I sit and think about how we get to net zero, I couldn't see a route to it without having different gas other than natural gas. And it became obvious to me that we need to have much more focus on things like hydrogen and biomethane. So, that's why I'm here. It is very much to focus on making sure that we go about it in the right way and we get, the investment that's needed. And we really talk about it to consumers, which is why it's great doing this conversation.
Clearly it excites you. What is it about the hydrogen future that excites you? Is it that huge change that's required? Is it, what is the real thing that drives you about hydrogen?
I think for me, it's the simplicity of it. And so this is about utilities in general, actually. It is invisible to consumers, that all these things that happen that makes their homes work and they can just carry on with their lives. If we can make the simplest of change, they can get a new boiler, right? And they can go home one day and come back, and they've got different gas in their pipe and they've got a net zero home without too much faff. The faff is with us, right? We have to make the production, do the conversion, do, all the things, but the effort is not pushed on consumers. And so I'm quite excited about us enabling a transition that is not too heavy on consumers. And my worry, of course, is that it's really hard to bring people with you when you've got all these things to do. So I'm very much driven by that. I'm also really driven by leaving this planet, leaving it in a better place than when I arrived from a carbon emissions point of view. Yeah.
So you're based in the Northwest. I mean, what do you do when you're not driving forward Cadent's hydrogen plans?
Well, I've got a young family. They keep me very busy. And, I'm a bit of a gardener. And,
are they all indoctrinated into the hydrogen future?
Absolutely, yeah. We can't. My poor husband. I do feel sorry for him sometimes, but they absolutely are. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about your low carbon credentials. A few quick fire questions. Do you drive a hydrogen powered car?
I wish I did. We've got some at Cadent. I've actually got an electric vehicle, 100% electric, which I also love, by the way. We do have electric vehicles. Fuel cell. Hydrogen fuel cells at Cadent, and you're right. The issue with that is there's nowhere to fill them up right now. So there's only a few places, and so there is
not even your special store that you've got there. No.
Well, yeah, and we've got actually there's a electrolyzer factory in Sheffield, which is near where I live. So there is an opportunity to get one at some point in the future.
So you've got electric car, but what else have you done at home to reduce your own carbon emissions?
Well, I've got kids who leave all the lights on, so we've got LEDs. It's all plugged in on an app, so they really can't do anything, bless them. That's all locked down. Haven't got a fuel heat pump or anything like that yet, and I think I'm holding out for having a hydrogen boiler, of course.
What's the biggest contribution then to your personal carbon footprint, do you reckon?
It will be the natural gas, I imagine, for heating my home. I don't fly a great deal. I don't have holidays like that. We're a UK holiday in the rain sort of family.
Right.
My poor kids. But anyway, yeah. So I do think, our carbon footprint at home is very much driven by our gas consumption, I should think.
Okay. Back to Cadent. You set out a list of 10 priorities as a business. It starts with preparing and scaling hydrogen production. I mean, what has to happen for you to prepare and scale hydrogen's production then?
Yeah, and it's probably worth me sort of making it clear that Cadent is not going to be making hydrogen. It's not our job. We manage the distribution of hydrogen. But if we don't know where the production is going to be, we can't facilitate its delivery to where it needs to go. And so our role in it is projects like HyNet, which is we're part of a consortium. We're not making the hydrogen, but we're going to receive it and distribute it. So similar to HyNet, we've carved up our region into geographies where we're looking at feasibility projects of where the hydrogen is going to start from and how we might need to take it places, who the likely customers going to be, where's the first routing of the first hydrogen pipelines, how can we reuse much of our existing infrastructure. So it's very much driven on a planning basis right now. And, we want, companies to come and talk to us if they've got a desire to make or to use hydrogen, because if we don't start understanding industry's needs, it's going to be very difficult for us to plan, what that infrastructure looks like.
Right, yeah. One of the other big things in your priority list is skills. And you talk about scaling investment in jobs and skills. I mean, hydrogen is an emerging industry. I mean, do we have the skills, the talent, the capability to lead in this industry?
We're not alone in the world in needing to invest in net zero activities and things that require engineering, whether it be pylons and digging up the street for new capacity of electricity system or laying new mains or whatever it might be for hydrogen, or even repurposing them, you've got a similar skill set. And so there will be, I think, challenges. And, we want to make our sector, and that's not just the gas sector, an attractive place for the future. And it's, we do need to retrain folks. And so hydrogen isn't that different, in terms of what you do today. It would be reskilling rather than completely new engineers. But we're going to need more, if we're going to manage a conversion.
I mean, you're the founder of the Women's Utility Network. What does that do, and why are organisations like this still important?
So I created the Women's Utility Network quite a while ago now, because through my entire career and the many women that I work with, we are in a minority in the utility sector. And that's simply history. But if you think about how can we really represent our customers, it really means you have equality and you have diversity of all kinds. And if you can't have diversity of men and women, or equality of men and women, which is the easiest one to get to in theory, you really struggle to do all the other ones too. And I really wanted to make, or help make, or do my bit, if you like, for making the utility sector a place where women can join and thrive in whatever they want to do in their career. We need the pipeline of women coming up through the sector, and, the utility sector is just significantly less diverse than we'd like. So it's just a network. It's co-funded by lots of different utilities. It's just whereas women get together and talk about how we can help each other. And, I'm really proud of the network. It's doing great things.
Okay. You also talk about looking after colleagues and customers. It's interesting, between 1967 and 1977, the UK invested, I think, over £100 million in a project to convert every gas cooker, central heating and hot water boiler from town gas to run on newly discovered natural gas. Do we need another similar scale publicly driven action to drive us towards hydrogen?
That is what it would take, yeah. If we're planning to convert a zone, let's say, where I live, to hydrogen, you would have to manage that programme like a replacement programme. So you'd have to warn people probably many years in advance, hydrogen's coming to you in whatever year, and you would talk to them about what that means, what it takes, what you can do in advance, what happens on the day. And that's the purpose of these village projects, is that you learn how that process, needs to happen, the kinds of things that you need to have in place. Now, back in the 60s and 70s, we had a nationalised energy system. You had one organisation who was responsible for it. You had a much less fragmented, if you like, energy system. You had significantly less homes as well. So it's not going to be as easy as it was back then, but there's definitely lessons learned. But you would have to manage a conversion process. You'd have to do the same, actually, manage a conversion process, whether it's converting to electricity or hydrogen.
Right, yeah. Well, finally, as we bring this to a close, fantastic. There's never enough time to talk about these things, but Sir John Armitt, Chairman of the National Infrastructure Commission, he told me recently that we still haven't really grasped the nettle when it comes to working out where hydrogen fits into the energy future. I suppose, is that right? And I suppose just finishes off, if that is right, what is needed to really shift our investment priority to make this myth a reality?
Yeah, I would say that the government has done a lot, to be quite clear where it's putting its effort when it comes to hydrogen right now. So it's putting its effort into making hydrogen at scale for industry and power generation. It's also got a 2026 decision on the role of hydrogen in heating homes. So I think the nettle is being grasped. I think the challenge, of course, is how does that fit into all the other decisions that are being made about energy and electricity? And I think I have high hopes for the future system operator. So the government are creating this body that is going to help us make national energy infrastructure decisions. And I think maybe he was alluding to how that gets set up sooner rather than later, that helps some of these problems that we need to solve. So I do think he's partly right, but I think big progress is being made.
Okay, well, let's finish on that very optimistic note then, Angie. Thanks so much for joining me today on the Infrastructure Podcast. It's a fascinating area, and I've got high hopes that you're really going to start creating some change. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks. So it's all we've got time for today on the Infrastructure Podcast, but we've got more in the pipeline, so to speak. If you haven't done so already, do check out the Infrastructure Podcast website, www.infrastructure-podcast.com, where you'll find lots of background information and all the latest podcasts to listen to and to share. So thanks for joining us today, and thanks again to Angie, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.